Hi everybody, it's Jim from Sprague Woodturning. This week we are going to take some sumac, some nuclear green forever glow, and some emerald green to make an awesome bowl set.
So this week, Brian, this is a commission for Brian. He sent along the sumac branches, and he's, as you can see, they're already cut kind of into lumber. So I don't know, it should give us a different look, that's for sure. He's already cleaned off the bark, the majority of the bark, so thank you so much for that. And I've got a little bit more that he sent along as well that we'll probably use at a later date. Right, the goal here is to back these in as tight as we can, and hopefully we can get, it'd be nice to get 4 bowls out of this, but we'll have to see.
So as you can see there, I use a stoner mold release, and I'm just trying to pack these branches in as tight as I can. A little tough to do when they're kind of cut into lumber pieces, but I tried to hammer them in there as best I could just to make sure that, trying to limit how much resin we're using.
Oh, that's not so bad.
This week's casting is 6 inches in depth, so you definitely need a deep casting epoxy such as this, and we're going to be using the deep cast from Designer Epoxy. Now, I don't think that it's absolutely crucial. You can mix up your epoxy first and then add your pigments, or you can just add it all in one shot and then mix it up. I don't know. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. It just depends on the day, I guess. Now, Brian wanted these 3 pieces to glow, so that's why we're putting in the Forever Glow Nuclear Green. And then just to give it a little bit of sparkle, we're going to use a little bit of the Emerald Green on top of that. And that should really give us a nice blend and really give us a real nice casting.
Yeah, it's going to take another one for sure. I know that looks like a good amount, but I know that it's not enough. I need at least another, well, probably at least another inch before, I know that this wood's going to absorb this resin, so, and it's full of air because I've used the mixer and the drill. So I'm going to mix up just a little bit more, I don't know, 1/2 inch, 3/4, and then obviously that'll be it because the bucket's not much taller than that. Here's another 3/4 of a liter, so we're looking at pretty much almost 4 liters of resin. All right, so what I'm going to do is put this in the pressure pot, put Dwayne on top of it, and I'll check back on it in about an hour. And well, I mean, you can see how much resin is there now. I'd say it's 3/4 of an inch. So we'll see how much it drops off when I open the pressure pot up. Just took the top off of the pressure pot, and I just measured the resin, and it's still about a 1/2 inch sitting on the very surface. So you know what? That's good. We'll leave that, and I'll see you guys in 72 hours. So it is 4 days later, and surprisingly enough, these branches didn't really eat a lot of this resin. It's probably, when I put it in there, there was about 3/4 of an inch on the top, so it did eat up that, but gee, I'm surprised. I thought it would be a lot lower than this. All right, let's get this out of here. Not a good start. That's wearing me out. Give me a break. Holy. Well, I just broke one of my favorite coffee cups. I'm going to maybe try screwing a bolt in the center of this and lifting up on it and pounding on it at the same time. That's about all I can think about doing. Wicked. Well, I guess we'll be making a new bucket. Yeah, there was a little bit of tape here, but I don't think that's what was holding that. Man, I can't get over that. I've been wanting to rebuild that bucket anyway. Looks like we've got a good solid casting. No thermal cracking, so that's good. All right, let's get this paint on the lathe.
Starting off here with the Hercules, lathes running at about 475. That's where I started this piece at. And the goal here is just to make sure that the outside of this is actually whittled down to wood and there's no resin basically over the outside surface of the bowls. I don't really care for that look. So inside, that's a little different story, but on the outside, big money bowl, I prefer to see all of that resin kind of gone. So, that didn't disappoint those who like to see me struggle getting the casting out of the bucket. You seen me spraying the mold release. So, it what it was in the end, I believe, was just a suction thing. And then when I was trying to blow air in the bottom, because I drill a hole in the bottom and then pump it full of air, well, there was enough air escaping around the casting that it just wouldn't come out. Along with that, I also believe that over the years that been using this bucket, it's probably been 2 years, with it being flipped upside down and kind of pounded on the bench and pounded on the floor, that it actually kind of flared the bucket, and that was actually preventing the casting from coming out. So I don't think the issue was the stoner mold release. I think the issue was just the bucket wasn't had mushroomed a bit, and like I said, it just wouldn't come out. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. So as you can see, I've determined where the foot's going to be and where the top's going to be. This piece was deep enough that I was able to actually turn 10 ends and hold the bowl, so there was no need to put glue blocks on the bottom for coring. Uh, so I just want to touch on last week's project, the stool that I did. And I'll be honest with you, I'm very surprised because typically flat work on my channel doesn't do all that well. I repaired a river table and it basically, or I made a table into a river table and it bombed. That was a terrible video. And, I thought that it was going to do well, but, it just goes to show you that the majority of the people that are probably watching my channel are turners and maybe it doesn't interest them. So, I was really surprised by that. So I did decide to go ahead and make a second video. And if you haven't seen it or it hasn't come up in your feed, just do a search on my channel and you'll find it. And anyway, it looks really cool and I've turned it into a table. That's what I've decided to do with this piece. But looking at our bowl here, this is a very unique look. It's not typically something that you'll see that I've done on the channel, and it's just those squared off pieces. So, I'm very pleased that Brian set this along. We haven't really turned much sumac other than little branches for inlays. So it was kind of refreshing and a little frustrating to work with this wood because it is very soft and it's very grainy. And I'm really, really surprised that it didn't soak up a lot more resin than what it did. When I took the top off of the pressure pot, I was really expecting, the resin level to drop off an inch below the branches. And I was like, oh, that's different. But if you haven't worked with any sumac, sumac has like a pitch almost like, uh, say, a white pine. And so that it must have some resin in it that's preventing the resin from actually penetrating it like it would if it was maple or birch or walnut or any of the other hardwoods. So it seems to be rather unique in that regard. Along with all this, Brian tells me that he got this sumac from Prince Edward Island. And so if you're not a Canadian, Prince Edward Island is on the east coast of Canada, and it's a small little touristy island. A very nice place to live in the summertime, and not so much in the wintertime. It's because the only reason I know this is because I lived in New Brunswick, just across the Northumberland Strait, and you can get some pretty wicked snowstorms and a lot of wind coming through there. So that's where these pieces actually come from, Prince Edward Island. Along with the snow, Prince Edward Island is known for its beautiful beaches and its PEI potatoes. Lots of potatoes. If you're eating potatoes, it may come from PEI.
We are getting ready to do some coring, and Mike Hunter sent me a new Core Pro cutter, and it's redesigned. And I don't know if the camera is going to pick it up or not. This is the new one here, and it's tilted down just a little bit from the old Core Pro cutter. I was really surprised to hear this from Mike because I think that it's a fantastic rig as it sits, but this new and improved design, I'm assuming, is probably going to help prevent catches. So it'd be interesting to see if we can see any differences. And I'm sorry if that's not coming in. Try and tilt that up so you can see the difference. It's not huge. It is tilted down a little bit, but like I said, I think it's probably got something to do with preventing catches. Let's find out. All right, I'm not going to be able to use tailstock support until I can get in here a little ways. Let's just hope that nothing goes wrong here. The tenon is mostly wood, so I should be able to bite into that good. All right, let's see what happens.
So we're not going to get greedy here. I'm only going to go for 3 bowls. I might have been able to squeak 4 out, but because I haven't turned enough of this sumac that's this large, I just really wasn't sure how the wood was going to behave. So I made sure to go for the sure thing and not get greedy. Now, if you remember the apple bowl, I actually ripped that out of the chuck. Now, part of that was the fact that the resin was mostly, or the tenon was mostly resin, and I think that probably had a major factor out of it, but I did get a catch and it did rip the casting out of the chuck. So with this new design, of course, we're all in grain again. And like all great companies, you're always trying to improve your products. And I believe that that's what Mike has done here. That with that cutter being tilted down a little bit, it's the same principle that I use when I'm using the Hercules. By tilting the handle up, you virtually will never get a catch. So I believe that's what's going on here, and this thing worked flawlessly. It never once gave me the impression that it was going to catch, and I'm really happy with this new design. The old design was fine by me. This is even better. I think I may have showed this a couple times. I could have used my vacuum chuck and put a tenon on the bottom of the bowl, but when you've got the master bowl, the large one, already chucked up, just spin that casting around. You can turn a tenon on the very bottom, and then that way you can core out the next piece. This actually works quite well. It's fairly fast, and give it a try. If you don't have a vacuum system, this is probably one of the easiest ways to do it. Another way around it would be to, flip it around and put a faceplate on the top part of it, and then mount it on your lathe and turn a tenon. You could turn it between centers. This way seemed to be the most efficient way to do it. So give it a try if you haven't tried it. So as you can see, I'm taking out the smallest core out of the large core. This went very smooth. Again, just light pressure. These resin and wood pieces are a challenge to core. And if you're not using the Core Pro cutter or a carbide cutter of some sort, I mean, you're going to be sharpening the cutter that comes with the one-way system a lot. And, hands down, this is by far the best uh, cutter that I've been able to find for the one-way coring system. Flipping that arm around, the support arm is very important. If that cutter dips down, you could actually kind of maybe bounce a little bit and then get a catch, which you certainly don't want. There you can see the smallest core is turned around, getting ready to turn a tenon on that. And initially I thought that I was going to be able to maybe get another smaller bowl out of this, but it just really wasn't really going to happen. I should have known better. I should have just turned the tenon on it and cored it out on the outboard end of my lathe. But hey, had to try. So the next couple of clips here, all I'm doing is making sure that the top is nice and flat. I plan on using my coal jaws to hold these pieces while I use my hot melt glue waste blocks like I always do. And if you don't have that nice and flat on the top, when you flip it around and you stick the glue block on the bottom, the bowl is going to be way out of level or way out of true. So make sure you flatten those tops before you actually try and put any glue blocks on.
Missed this first one because my battery died. I'll try to get the other two.
As you can see, we're now flipping around outboard. And again, for the new people, if you're wondering why I turn on the outboard end of my lathe, I'm left-handed. This is a 20-inch general, and it has left-hand threads on the outboard end. So if you're left-handed and you're struggling with working on the lathe, try and find one of these generals. They made them for quite some time, so there's quite a few of them on the market. And turn outboard. And if you do that, you'll trust me, you'll thank me because it's a righty world. And for some reason, I don't know why General actually did left-hand threads on the outboard end of this lathe, but I'm sure I'm glad that they did. So I'm just truing the surface of this up. Of course, we're going to do the outside first before we move to the inside. I'm only going to show the turning on the big bowl and none on the other two cores. This video is plenty long as it is. We certainly do encounter some issues. The resin where it bonds to the wood, for whatever reason, was really chipping out quite a bit there. And I don't know, the wood certainly is fragile. There's no doubt about it. So, if you're too aggressive with it, then you're going to end up with maybe too much tear out. And as you can see, like I'm taking some pretty light cuts there. So this is the Starbond, and I find that when you get a fairly deep uh, piece that's missing, if you try to chase that, sometimes it just doesn't go away. So what I like to do is use the Starbond and then go back and clean the surface down again. And now you've got a flat surface for that cutter to glide across. And when you have that, you're less likely to tear out any more resin. Even though you may turn past the glue, it will help you get there. So, I I don't know how you can be a wood turner and not use super glue. I've used it my entire career. It has saved my behind plenty of times. Now we're doing the inside and just nibbling away all the way down. There is a fair bit of material in the belly of the bowl here on this piece, like there typically is. And I'll explain that if you're not familiar with why. And that's because the knife set has a certain profile. And if you don't match that profile on basically the outside, then you're going to have to get rid of all that mass that's down in that belly of the bowl. I'm a firm believer in making the outside bowl the largest bowl that you can possibly make. Uh, Basically, value wise, that's what you should be really looking at here. If you really insist on having a nested set that's all the same profile, then by all means, if you wanted to, I've never tried it, and the reason that I've never tried this is because I'm a little worried as to what would happen when the cutter would finally break through. But if you use the cutter basically on the outside of this bowl, you would have that profile. And if I'm just working with straight wood, it probably wouldn't be that big of a concern. But with this resin, uh, you can see it weekly almost with most wood turners that are working with resin. It can cut you almost like glass. So I'm a little worried that if you used it on the outside of the bowl to get that same profile, and it decided at the very end to just kind of fly apart. I mean, that's to me is a safety issue. You can damage your equipment, damage your lights, and damage yourself. So that's why I typically don't do that. You can turn the outside profile by hand and then hold the knife set up to it to basically gauge it if you wish. If it's just a straight piece of wood, then it's certainly not as iffy to do. But probably best to just turn that outside profile and then use the knife set to give you the exact profile you're looking for. So I know that there's a lot of people that actually like to hear the lathe sounds. So for the next few clips, just to though this bowl has been whittled away here, that I'll just turn the volume up a little bit and we can listen to the sounds of the lathe. Finally on to sanding. These are the 3.5-inch dipple discs from sandpaper.ca. This piece was sanded from 60 to 800. Now, Sumac has very soft piths, or what I like to call sometimes the heart of the tree, but the very center of the tree, the pith. So I'm using some Starbond there just to try and harden that up before I carry on with sanding. Sumac is notorious for this, and it's just one of those things you're going to have to deal with if you work with this species. This is the Triple E buffing compound from the Be All buffing system, and it's great to just take out those fine little scratches prior to finishing. And of course, the last step before the finish goes on is to clean the surface with denatured alcohol.
This week we are going to be using the Waterlux Original VOC Medium Sheen. And I don't know how much the Sumac's going to take, but I'm assuming it's going to take a minimum of 3 coats, but we'll see. Well, I must say it's pretty cool. I really like the look of Sumac. There's really not another wood in nature that I think looks like it. I think that this thing is going to glow really nicely too. There is a couple of spots where the heart got in the way here and is a little softer than others along there. It's indented quite a bit, but there's really no way around it. I tried to set them in best so they wouldn't be an issue, but still a very beautiful bowl, and this thing I think is going to glow really nicely. All right, that's it for me today. See you guys tomorrow. All right, so it's the next day, and I thought that I would show this. Now, I'm going to put the second coat on this, and the reason for that first thing is because after I turn the other 2 bowls, there's going to be all kinds of dust in here. And when you put the first coat of finish on, that's not really so much a problem. But if you're putting the second coat of finish on, it is. So we'll put the second coat of finish on here. And then what I will do after that is I will just turn those other 2 bowls and I'll bring you in when we're putting the coat of finish on.
So for the new people, same process, Triple E buffing compound inside and out, and you can actually see how it brings a shine to it. And then of course cleaning it with the denatured alcohol before the next coat of finish, and that's how all the coats are done.
This is the second coat of Waterlux Original VOC Medium Sheen. Well, there you go. Ordinarily I'm not a huge fan of these square kind of pieces, but it seems to all work. The sides for sure probably wouldn't know any different that, these were actually, pieces of lumber, sort of. But anyway, it works. I think that we're definitely going to have 3 coats, though. All right, I'll see you when we're doing the largest core for the first coat of finish. Here is the largest core. One thing that's interesting when you're working with, kind of squared off pieces of timber is it gives you different geometric shapes now, doesn't it? Very cool. Third one coming up. Well, there's the little guy. Nothing hugely exciting about him. Or her. All right, so for the big bowl, I'm pretty sure it'll need another coat, so I'll do that tomorrow, and that'll be done the same way as the second coat. And then I'll do the same thing with these, and we'll see at the end when I'm doing the foot.
In order for the 2 smaller bowls to catch up with the first large bowl, I actually 2-coated both of them in the same day. So I put the first coat of finish on first thing in the morning at probably around 9 o'clock, and then at 5 o'clock in the evening I did the second coat and everything worked out just fine. Time to do the bottoms, and as you can see, I've got my door open and it is fall. Beautiful colors out this time of year in Canada. It's very, very pretty. If you haven't been here in the fall, you definitely should, because it is absolutely beautiful with all the trees in different colors. This is the large bowl, and there was still a fair bit of hot melt glue on the very bottom of it. So I wanted to make sure to get rid of that before I use the Hercules. That way the cutter doesn't get clogged up. And I decided to make a little recessed foot in this piece. So that's what I'm doing, just nibbling away. I don't know, it's probably about 1/8 of an inch deep, somewhere's around there. And just like the rest of the bowl, the foot was sanded from 60 to 800 as well.
All right, as per normal, I'm running kind of short on time. So here's the bowl. First time really working with Sumac on this scale. I've certainly used the branches a fair bit in my work, but never anything this large. Really, really cool. Dimensions on this are 10.5 by 5 3/4. That's the large bowl. Here's the very bottom, and very hard to write on. And as you can see, he wanted this again. Brian wanted these on there. Memories of the Blackberry Lane, PEI. That's what's on there. I just don't have any time to get any finish on these until later on today. So that's the big one. Really cool. I don't know. You know, it's very, very tough to write on. It's very grainy, and but other than that, I mean, I really like the color of Sumac. Like I said before, in nature here in Canada, there's not really a wood here in Canada that looks like this, that I know of anyway. So that's the big one. This one is 8 by 3, and this is of course the largest core. You see some pigment got kind of trapped down in there. Here's the very bottom. And you know, I didn't think that I would like this as much as I did, I'll be honest with you. And the reason for that is these straight lines in these branches. So, you know, I think the way that you need to do this is you have to really go make a bowl like this, a bowl set like this with straight lines or all round pieces. If you kind of mix them all in there, I don't know. You can tell me your thoughts on that, but I think that it's probably best to be done kind of all the same. So, you know, I'm really, really happy with this. It turned out quite well. As you can see, like the resin, because, you know, this is shaped the way it is, you can see some ghost patterns in there. Very cool. Absolutely love it. Again, very hard to write on the very bottom of this. Just so grainy. But that's what kind of makes it cool too. There's a little guy, 5 inches across by 1 inch tall. Now, of course, the one thing that we haven't done, we haven't looked at these to see if they're going to glow. And unfortunately today it is pouring rain. So I'm not going to be able to charge these up with UV lights, but I do have a UV flashlight. So let's go into my air compressor slash dust collector room, and we'll shut the door. I'll charge these up with the black light and we'll have a look at them, see what it does. So I'm just going to quickly hit this with the black light, and hopefully it gives us enough of an idea how well this is going to glow. It really should sit in the sun for maybe a half hour or so, and then it would give you a really true picture. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but I'm trying to do this here, but Sumac is kind of iridescent under a black light. There you go. Wow. And that's just a few seconds with that black light. Very cool. There's the bottom. Can't even tell where the foot is. My finger is on the edge of the foot. That's pretty cool. Awesome. All right, I'll get the largest core. That one's even better. Right in there. That's where a lot of those glow pigments are. See how intense they are? And that, you know, that's probably 15 seconds is all I charge that up with. Here's the very bottom. Mostly the bottom is wood, so not going to see a big difference there. Yeah, this thing would really probably glow quite strong if it was in the sun for a little bit. Very cool. All right, let's get the smallest one. There you go. That's, again, probably 15 seconds. There's the bottom. Again, it's mostly wood, but really cool as well. Nice and bright there, that's for sure. Very cool. All right, well, that's it for the video. It was nice to get back on the lathe. If you missed it, I did shoot a second video on the stool, and I've since changed my mind and turned it into a table, and we're going to call it the Dragon Eye table. Lots of people thought it was a dragon eye, so that's what we're going to call it. And I will link that video at the end of this one if you haven't seen that, the second one. I had no intentions of making another video, but there seemed to be a lot of people wanted me to kind of finish it on the channel here, so that's what I did. So I will link that at the end of this video so you can check that out if you haven't seen it in your feeds. All right, well, that's it. Next week, we are probably, I think what we're going to do is we're going to finish the largest bowl that I've ever made. And it's going to be a little bit of resin and some natural materials and walnut. So, I mean, it's the best of all the worlds. So make sure you come on back for that. Well, that's it. Don't forget to don't forget to put designer epoxy all by itself down in the comments below to be entered into the 3-gallon giveaway at 80,000 subs. And sorry, that's for Canada and the lower 48 US states only. And of course, by leaving a comment down below, you'll also be entered into my bowl draw that I give away every 5,000 bowls. So I guess that's it. Take care, stay safe, don't forget that bell. Please share my videos with your friends. We'll see you next week.